Hello again, CSCI-150 students. This is another recording for this course. And in this recording, we're going to focus on the concept of a loop or an iteration. We're going to take the program, the Raptor program that you see on the right, where I'm clicking right now, and translate that into Python on the left. Now, just to go over the program on the right, what it does, it basically allows the user to enter a fixed number of scores. In this case, that number is used as a variable called limit, and in this case set to 4. So it'll allow me to enter 4 scores, and then inside the loop compute the sum of those scores and count how many. And then when I'm done, outside the loop, it's going to compute the average as the sum divided by the count and display the average for me. So unlike before where we had exactly 2 or 3, now the user can basically put any value they want in limit, in variable limit, and they'll get that number. They'll get the chance to enter that many scores and compute their average. So limit is equal to 4, variable count to allow me to count how many values I've got so far or how many scores. And this is the sum, the accumulator for the scores so far. Here's my loop. Once the count exceeds or equal to limit, I'm going to exit the loop. As long as count is less than the limit, I enter another score, and the message will also display the score number that you're entering. So first it'll tell you enter exam, and then count plus 1. Count is initially 0, so count plus 1 will be 1. So first message will be enter exam 1, and then enter exam 2, enter exam 3, which makes the message a bit more user-friendly. You enter a score. Whatever you enter is added to the sum over here. The sum is updated, and then the score, the count of scores or exams is increased by 1, and then we iterate again. That's going to repeat until count reaches the value 4, in which case it's equal to the limit. We're going to break the loop, go outside, compute the average as the sum divided by the count, and then display the values. So this is the program in Raptor. In Python, I've already given us a head start. The first 3 boxes basically have been translated. Just assignment, limit equal to 4, count is equal to 0, sum is equal to 0. Here's my loop. We'll come back to the loop later on. Outside the loop, compute the average as sum, variable sum divided by count, and then display the average of the number of scores. So the average score for this many exam scores is this, and the average is float, so it's displayed with 2 decimal places. Now, in Raptor, the way you write your condition is you specify the condition for when the loop exits. So basically, once the condition is true, you exit. As long as the condition is false, you continue. Python is just the opposite. In Python, you specify the condition to continue. So it's basically just exactly the opposite. So if we're going to stop when count is equal to or greater than the limit, then my condition to continue would be as long as count is less than, strictly less than the limit. So if it's not greater than or equal to the limit, it must be less than the limit. Over here, if it's not greater than or equal to the limit, then I continue the loop or repeat the loop. The same thing is going to be here with the while statement. So this is the first form of a loop that we're going to learn about, the while statement. So the condition is just going to be the opposite. Inside over here, I'm just going to translate the rest. We have an exam variable equals to an input statement. And that's going to be in the form of enter exam. And then I'm going to display the exam number. Dot format. Let's see. Dot format. We could do count plus 1. Okay, so it'll display that for me. Once I enter the exam score, I'm going to say sum is equal to sum plus exam, and then set count equal to count plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to run the program, enter exam 1. So first count is equal to 0 plus 1, that'll be 1. I'm going to enter 50. And the program is going to fail because I forgot to do something very important. I entered the value without converting it into a number. So in this case, I'm going to convert it into a float as opposed to an integer. It really won't make much of a difference, but it'll allow me to enter decimal places. So let me do, let's do 50.5. Enter exam 2, 60. Exam 3, so right now we've got an average of slightly over 55.5. Let's do 55, and then let's do 58. So we should get something in the high, mid to high 50s. So my average is 55.88, and it said the average score for 4 exam scores is 55.88. So this should be the equivalent of the Raptor program. I'd like just to take a minute to trace the program with you so that you understand what's happening. So I'm going to reset. Okay, so let us trace the program now for subsample values in order to understand how those are updating. And I'm going to use the debug feature so that we're able to execute the program 1 instruction at a time and see what's happening in terms of my variables. So if you've got simple lines, you could always do step overs, but once you get into something more complicated like a loop, you want to say step into so that you don't, otherwise it'll treat the whole loop as a single statement and step over it. So now limit is equal to 4 over here, count is equal to 0 over here, sum is equal to 0. So I've got my variables over here, and now I'm going to say step into. So the first thing is it's going to evaluate the condition. Is count less than limit? Well, count is less than limit, 0 is less than 4. So it's going to now run this statement, asking me to enter a number and store that number or exam score in exam. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to enter 50, enter. So now I've got variable exam is equal to 50.0 because it's a floating point number. The sum is going to get updated now. It's going to go from 0. We're going to add 50 to it. It's going to become 50 over here. Count is going to go from 0. And we're going to increment it by 1, and it's going to become 1. Okay. So now compare 1 to the limit. Is 1 less than the limit? Yes. The loop now is going to repeat again. I'm going to be asked to enter another score. So I'm going to enter 70. Notice now, first time it displayed count plus 1, count was 0, so it displayed 1. Now it displayed enter exam 2, that's because count is 1, plus 1, it becomes 2. Sum is going to be the 50 plus the 70, it's going to become 120. Count is going to become 3. Again, repeat the same, count is still less than the limit, 2 is less than 4. Enter yet another exam score. Count is 2, so it's going to tell me enter exam. Count plus 1, which is 3. Let's do 80. It's going to be 200, 120 plus the 80. 3 is less than 4. Repeat. Let's do 100. So now we're going to get an average of 75. Enter. 200 plus the 100, that's 300. And count is going to become 4. So this stage is going to go back and try to evaluate this condition. Is count less than the limit? It's going to notice that, nope, that's no longer the case. It's going to exit, compute average to be the sum, 300 divided by the count, which is 4. So that's going to be 75, average 75, and then it's going to display this statement. So there you have it. Thank you much for listening, and goodbye.